All right, I'm going to pull this close. Well, that's a point about the deeds to the cemetery plots and keeping your records and knowing where they are. So that goes right along with what we're going to be talking about tonight. And I am filling in for Gwen, who's at the DAR event. So I'm happy to do that. This is National Archives Month. So we're going to talk a little bit about preserving what you have in the way of archives and, in a broader sense, family heirlooms. And that is really so broad. It's going to be impossible to cover each and every kind of heirloom that you all might have. I see faces out there in the audience. You've brought wonderful things to show and tell, and you're more expert in that than I am. We have a lot of paper in the Tennessee room, and I've dealt with those types of things or with smaller artifacts. I've done a lot of reading on textiles and coursework in textiles in the past, but going to give you some general guidelines about how to keep your things safe and make them last as long as possible. So first of all, it can be pretty intimidating to maybe have a death in the family, a grandparent, great-grandparent, and then you're faced with an attic full of stuff, or maybe you come into things a little bit at a time, things that are unique, precious treasures that you feel connected to your family through those things. But it can be intimidating. And then there is also the mythology that I have plenty of time to take care of this. So you don't look at it for years and years, and maybe you tuck it in the attic, or maybe it's in the garage. Hopefully not. But the myth is I can take care of this sometime, and I'm going to get around to it. Famous last words, right? The thing is, you need to address it. Don't just assume it's going to be okay forever, because years go by. I was looking into a list of some of the most common or popular types of heirlooms that people inherit. And I want to kind of read this list. You can do a self-assessment out there to see if you have any of these things, not or whatever. Number one, hands down, jewelry. A lot of people inherit jewelry. Number two, timepieces, pocket watches, railroad watches, something like that. Furniture, maybe a four-poster bed or a roll-top desk, or maybe a Hoosier cabinet. Letters, diaries, correspondences, paperwork, scrapbooks. Number six, Bibles or other books that people kept in generations of the family. Does everybody have a family Bible that they have? I unfortunately do not have that. That didn't survive in my family. Military memorabilia, maybe a Civil War rifle, maybe medals, maybe a bayonet or a knife. Could be part of a uniform even. Number eight is quilts. And I know there are quilters in here. Are you taking care of your quilts? And maybe in the time after the slides are shown, and we might discuss what you're doing with your quilts, or you guys, ask questions or make comments on this. Number nine, collections, things like coins or stamps, things that are commonly collected. They are ascribed a value based on maybe rarity. It could be baseball cards. That's another thing. Number 10, family home or family land that's been in generations and generations of your family. That's a little harder to take care of, so I'm not going to cover that as an archive. Number 11, garments like wedding gowns. Did anybody preserve their wedding gown after the wedding? Kathy did. I've helped people do that. Cedar chests, hope chests, or steamer trunks, and it can be either empty or full of stuff. Did anybody get something like that from family members? Number 13 is musical instruments, maybe a violin, a banjo, a guitar, other type of instrument. Number 14, this is going to have a great show of hands, or a lot of people nodding that they have this. Photos, photo albums, wedding albums, of course, yearbooks, and these can be from generations back. Number 15, weapons. I guess that would go back to Civil War rifle. Could be something from World War II, perhaps, like a military trophy that somebody took off of a battlefield. Number 16, what about kitchenware? Something like a churn or china. Number 17, textiles, embroidered linens. And then there's art, fine art, something passed down like portraiture in the family. Number 19 is just family tradition or stories. Number 20, vegetables. Vegetables, vegetables. I inherited some vegetables. And number 21, and I think they've cheated here, absolutely anything else. So anything goes. If it gives good memories and good connection to your family, it can be considered an heirloom, and you may have to figure out how to store that. But the thing is, you know, the passage of time and generations impart value to these objects, and they become precious to us. So we want to know how to make them last as long as possible, because no matter how well preserved something is, it's fighting the passage of time. Things are temporary, temporal. So these things are either going to be from living substances, animal products, animal byproducts, or plant life. Something like leather would be an animal product, a fur collar on great-grandmother's 1900s coat, a beaver hat, just anything that comes from the animal kingdom. Vegetable could be linen, could be cotton textiles. I think Ricky has a wonderful coverlet from many generations back. And then the other categories, mineral, which would include, you know, jewelry, military medals, and that sort of thing. The only thing is it becomes complicated whenever these three components get combined into one object, like maybe a clock that might have a metal pendulum. It's going to have a wooden case. So think about all the components in the object that you have, because there are some generalities, but then there are also some specifics about those. Not only the passage of time and the object itself, which is kind of programmed from its molecules as far as how long it lasts, then we have other factors that cause it to degrade faster if we don't control those things. Temperature, humidity, air pollution if you live in a big city, physical damage from mishandling something, chemicals that you inadvertently place on it. For example, if you use an aerosol spray on your roll-top desk, you may be using a good substance, but there are propellants in the aerosol can, so you kind of have to think that through. And once damage occurs, it's cumulative, and eventually, over the passage of a lot of generations, it, you know, can eventually not be readable or usable anymore. Things fade or things fall apart. Some objects have their own inherent vices, like paper is filled with acid. It's made from wood pulp now. So that's going to actually break itself down. You can see on the page where I have the arrow pointing to just the discoloration from another layer of paper on top of it. So what can you do? It seems a little futile in a way, but you want to make things last as long as you can and treat it well. So you want to keep it in a good, consistent temperature and humidity. You don't want to put things in the basement. You don't want to store it in the attic. The temperature is going to be really way too high there. High temperatures can make things brittle, as well as low humidity will make things brittle. So inks will flake away. Photograph images, which are made of emulsions on a paper base, will just powder away due to that. You want to keep away food, snacks, beverages. You don't want to work with that around your scrapbook. You want to clean the surface of your table before you put the scrapbook down to work on, because dampness, crumbs of food, fingerprints from snacking, can cause, I hit my keyboard, can cause pests to come in and want to take a munch on that. The thing about humidity is that anything that causes great fluctuations is actually worse than the, inappropriate, the less than ideal humidity. If it goes way up and way down, then that can actually cause furniture joints to swell and contract, or other wooden objects to swell and contract, and can make the parts loose in a clock. It could make furniture joints loosen over time, so you want to take care of that. And then keep things out of light, because all types of light will fade. Fade photographs, it will fade inks, it will fade pages of books, spines of books, family Bibles, leather. It just is going to damage that, and you can't get the color back at all. So be mindful of not hanging precious art facing a window that's going to get direct sun from, morning east or afternoon west setting sun. That will take its toll. And then you also want to handle well. As I was saying, work on a clean surface, touch with clean hands. You don't have to use gloves always. In fact, the recommendation now is not to use gloves on fragile paper, because cotton gloves can cause you to lose your tactile sensation of the page. And then also the knit of the glove could actually catch on a dog-eared corner and rip it. So whenever gloves are used, it's recommended to use the nitrile ones, because they're very slick and they fit well to your hands. Whenever you work with your archives, you want to write only in pencil. When you make notes around for yourself, you want to not use ink near that, because you could inadvertently drop the pen. You could mark on that. You want to also clean away any dust, or if you see mold, hopefully not active mold, but inactive mold, you can use a natural bristle brush and lightly brush in one direction away. You can interleave letters and envelopes, or, for example, family Bible information pages. You can interleave those so that inherent vice will not occur and stain the page from the top. So just a few things that we use in the Tennessee room. They're available, and the paper interleaving doesn't have to be anything remarkably special, because nowadays, unlike earlier decades, nowadays paper is pretty much low acid. They found that when they manufactured paper, it was actually tearing up the manufacturer equipment. So they de-acidify it to a great degree before they mill the paper. You can use that. There is a water damage. That is actually a photo album that we have. We were donated that within the year. And the components there, it has leather on the cover, it has a metal clasp, and then it has the photographs, which have the emulsion, and then all of the cardboard stock that enclose the photographs. You can see a dark area and that high corner. Whenever we put that in a box, we're going to get a deeper box so that the lid doesn't ride on that corner. We've got to measure the dimensions of that. We want to kind of tuck that away where it won't be exposed anymore to that. Books in general, you want to be careful with a family Bible. Hopefully you're storing that flat. But if you have other, like first edition books, does anybody collect first editions from anyone? I know some of our librarians here do. But you wouldn't want to just grab the book and pull it out by the top of the spine, because you see the tearing that can take place. You want to be careful and push from behind. So if you happen to have anything that's an older book that you want to last longer. There's the family information page of a Bible that we have, and ink is different. over the decades. So let me find my page again, tap my keyboard. What we're going to do here is interleave with a page so that the highly acidic paper is not going to be on top of the signature. We're also going to either photograph or scan that so that we're not losing the fading ink. And one simple thing is don't stack stuff like that. What are they thinking? You know, again, it can be overwhelming, but these are obviously very, very old, and they're probably some sort of church record, you know, from centuries back. But the best thing, because of that staining that paper imparts to other paper that surrounds it, or the covers on these books, you want to box these things or try to separate them, segregate these things so that one thing isn't just staining another. So we use a lot of boxes in the Tennessee room for our archives. We use mainly two types. We use an upright or we use flat boxes. So upright we use for documents. And what we want to do there is we want to put a single document in a folder, or a single, for example, a letter, it might have 2 pages. We would interleave the 2 pages and then we would put that single letter into the folder. If it's a large flat object or something like a Bible or a journal, we will use a flat box because that takes the stress off of standing it up. One thing, they don't always make the right size box that you need. They're pretty standard, and we try not to have something boxed in a way that it will shake around inside the box when you pick it up and hear it moving or feel it moving, because it can damage the corners or the spine. So we take up additional space either by rolling up some paper, or we'll chop apart some acid-free cardboard and fill out that empty space so that it's not just moving around inside the box, striking the corners. How many people have seen a scrapbook that might have a straight pen or a safety pin in it? Have any of you encountered anything in your own personal archives with pens? I will tell you that Miss Emma Inman Williams was a master at using the straight pen as a staple. She really was. But you can see how these pages are dog-eared, and they're going to fray. If you have a glove on that's going to catch on that, you might accidentally rip that. But try to get the pens out very, very carefully. Newspaper can be pretty tricky because it is not strong and it weakens very easily, but just slip it out, put it on a flat surface, and open it and just pull it out as straight as you can without lifting. As you lift, you might accidentally make a cut in the paper. You can place a document in a sheet protector. No documents were harmed. This is just a scan. This is an apprenticeship document that we have. It's Mutual Improvement Club. So I have cut this. We often find documents that have creased very, very tightly, and then they pop apart on the folds. So this is a good candidate for putting it in a sheet protector, but it's hard to do that. It's not going to behave at all. It's going to try to catch. And that's why you work on a flat surface. Let's come around here. It's trying to catch. So what I've learned to do is I'll put a solid sheet behind it and let it ride in on top of another sheet. And if you need more help, then sandwich it between two sheets, because these are easy to pull away once you get the fragile document in, like that. So that if you have anything that you need to put in enclosures, then you can treat it in that way.
Or you can just Scotch tape it together.
Oh, please don't. No, no.
Are those acid-free, those sheet protectors? Yeah.
Yes, these are inert. There are better sheet protectors to use than others. Let's see. There is the answer to that. You want to use sheet protectors that are polyester, polypropylene, or polyethylene. It's like the polys. And I have to admit, last time I was a little concerned about David's notebook, because he has a textile that was enclosed in a plastic bag with a notation on it. And I was thinking maybe it doesn't need to be in there, but those bags are polyethylene, so you're okay. I'll take you off the hook. Those are okay. Right. Now the only issue that I have with you now is it had a Post-it note, and that may not be the best. But for the meeting, right. So anyway, that's one technique there. Should have brought a clipboard. Removing staples. It's rather thin sometimes. You know, your paper can be the type that is not conducive, in fact. But thin cardboard, and just push it all the way off, and it'll catch on the cardboard and come off of the paper. Even though it's rather, even thin paper, it works for that. Sometimes older paper clips rust, and they stain and they stick. So that's just a technique to use. But good question about the type of. This is a paper clip. Okay, staples, we use our spatula. We don't use stapler removers. We will put it on a flat surface and pry the ends of the staple away from the paper. If it's fragile paper, I might put this beside the staple that I'm prying, so that the spatula doesn't make an indentation in the paper itself. You want to protect that. So just try to be very supportive of the paper. That is your record. If it's something that's really large, like a map, or can't think of, perhaps signage, perhaps a valuable movie poster or something like that, like you see at cabinet cards for movies, you have to support the whole size of that document if you can. And so never just pick something up with one hand, always keep it flat, keep it supported. And I actually like to carry documents with something underneath. Just even a piece of paper or an acid-free folder makes a wonderful background to carry. You can keep these items separated by sheets of paper. One thing that we did with our newspaper project, we didn't want to handle them over and over and over. They were so fragile. Ricky brought in some newspapers today to the Tennessee room from the 20s, and what do you think, Ricky? Pretty hard to work with.
One of them, every time you touched it, pieces fell off.
Pieces fall off like confetti. So what we did with something oversized, or this would also work with a large body of documents, scrapbooks perhaps, or whatever, or letters, we made index cards for every date that we had. And we wanted to put these in chronological order. So rather than pick up a paper, stack it on the table, go get the other paper, and then 15 minutes later you find another newspaper that's supposed to go in between those. So we checked every date by index card, and then we moved the papers one time and one time only. And then we wrapped them in supportive acid-free paper and placed them in their boxes. So just minimize your handling. So this is what happened. Yes?
I have a question on that.
Uh-huh.
On old newspapers, is it the paper that's precious or is it the content that's on the newspaper?
It can be both.
It can be both, right. Yeah, that's a good answer, Joy. Very good.
It can be both.
Mm-hmm. So you would photograph, you think, scan? Mm-hmm. In our case, though, I mean, we do want to preserve our papers as a library.
You know, clippings of Chancery Court sales or whatever newspaper clippings, you know, we do have permission to just photocopy that.
Yeah.
Place that in the
Mhm.
file, you know. And actually, I think some, you know, archivists, some guidelines say, oh, it dispose of.
You
the
can,
clippings.
yeah. Well, we. That's right, right. But I used our newspapers, but it could be, again, it could be posters, it could be larger artwork or maps or something like that, that is a little bit oversized or voluminous. Everybody probably has some old photographs, right? So you want to, if it is in a folder or if it's matted, you want to maintain it with that. Usually, like the cabinet card pictured, people will have written on the back. It might have a photography studio imprint. That's going to help you date it. Don't try to take it out of that. Just leave it in that. That is part of it. Don't touch those with your hands because those are chemicals on paper. We know paper's trying to degrade anyway, and the emulsions and chemicals on the surface are very, very fragile. And so when you look at those, you want to make an inventory perhaps, then put it in a sheet protector, something like Mylar, polypropylene. Earlier photographs are going to have a more complex makeup. They're going to have, perhaps they're in a metal frame. The photograph is probably on the glass itself, so keep scratchy things away from that. One thing about materials that are considered maybe detrimental, and it can be with soft metals like silver jewelry or whatever, cotton is probably a better liner for that. But what we would do with this would be just to box it. We would not put this in like a sheet protector or an enclosure. We would just box this. And with photographs, a lot of photographs find their way into scrapbooks. Does anyone have scrapbooks? Yeah, lots, lots of people. They have lots of souvenirs in them. Usually the paper is not the best. Actually, the earlier papers, if you work like Starla does and Lori with archives, the earlier paper is rag paper, and it doesn't have that inherent vice of trying to break down and turn yellow and degrade. But when they improved paper manufacture into wood pulp paper, then it does try to break itself down. So they used a lot of newsprint paper to manufacture economical scrapbooks. And then on top of that, people use a lot of mucilage and a lot of glue. This is one thing that we have, and it's a picture of the Hub City Navy Mothers Club. So a lot of the scrapbooks have tails hanging out from beyond the cover, and that newspaper article is probably just come apart. There's a little bit left hanging below the surface there. A lot of scrapbook makers will fold that up, but then it's going to have a really severe crease in it and have a tendency to dry out and then come apart. Have you seen that? Yeah. And notice the amount of glue next to that gentleman in the uniform. Yes. We don't like to take them apart because oftentimes the information from the person compiling the scrapbook is just infused within the scrapbook itself. Their choices, the information they put together. But sometimes in our situation, we don't have room for huge scrapbooks. So Catherine's lifting off some newspaper articles from the scrapbook she's working with. We are saving the information. It's already processed, but we could not keep it on that material, which is very low quality paper, to boot. And then the notorious sticky albums. Very common for the last 50 years. They have the lines under that glossy, nice, slick covering. And that's terrible. It's horrible. They are so destructive. Pardon me? Who thought of that? Right. That glue eats photographs, it eats documents, and once it sticks, you can't get it off. You're going to tear the item up trying to get it out. And this is one thing that we have. This is a scrapbook belonging to Isaac B. Tigert. And so he thought enough of this stock certificate to want to include it in this scrapbook. And you see, there is no way that's coming out. So it's really sad that we can't get that out. And then on the other page, you can't even see the man's face because the mucilage has come through, rank and file. You can't even read the headline of that. One thing we do when we work with scrapbooks is that we number every page. Again, because the scrapbook is a byproduct of the compiler, and you want to take notes or understand the person and their choices of what they're putting in there. Sometimes it's a good choice, sometimes not. Yes?
I'm just going to mention on those systematic books like that, one option you do have that works some of the time is the dental floss technique. We have used that successfully, not all the time, but it's worth a shot. We take dental floss and kind of ease it between the paper and the corner and look and saw it back and forth very gently, but you have to make sure the page does not move and work it. Sometimes you can ease that.
Sometimes the mucilage dries out, and that is very helpful in trying to do that. But if you can, while you still can, remove any photographs that you can and try to just recreate that scrapbook with a photograph album page in a notebook. You can use something like a view binder if you want to do that, but they make special archival clamshell boxes or box binders, they're sometimes called, and you can take the pages out and just recreate the whole scrapbook in an acid-free box. Here is, I think it's a 1928, Ricky processed this, girl graduate scrapbook. It is filled. It has candy wrappers, and what did we say about food and pests, right? It has glue, it has ribbons, newspaper articles, it has souvenirs, it has graduation programs, thank you cards, I don't know.
It's really neat just to see what a teenage girl was saving.
Absolutely.
What meant something to her.
Absolutely true. That is the record of that person's life that year. But you see how misshapen it is from all of that extra material in there. But we didn't take any of that out. Ricky was very diligent, and he photographed everything. If something was folded up, he unfolded it and photographed it so that you can read everything in there. sometimes there are cards, greeting cards. This is a report card, and some acid-free tissue could be placed in that just to keep it away from the envelope a little while longer. And this is Ladies Auxiliary to the Veterans of World War I collection, one that I really enjoyed processing, but it had so many different things in it. It had fabric, it had wooden gavels, it had scrapbooks that they compiled. So those things were pretty challenging. What we did is that we separated those individual materials. We didn't want to put everything together. We wanted to segregate the fabric. We wanted to segregate the wooden gavel from the paper or from the fabric because it could stain that. There were framed charters and things in that. So we never know what we're going to get, so whenever a donation comes in. But this one had more three-dimensional objects. This and maybe Lester Coleman collection. So a byproduct of modern day archiving would be media. And Ricky might be able to also answer some questions about this because he helped with some cassette tapes that we have and also some slides. But the thing is, media becomes obsolete. It's going to be replaced. Obsolescence is the inherent vice. Cassette tapes, you've got about 30 years. And then after that, it's probably so fragile that you only get one chance to try to convert it to something else. We used Audacity, which is a free program, and Stephen may know of some others that Adobe, okay.
Which is expensive, so stick with Audacity.
Audacity is free. It takes time though, doesn't it, Ricky? You have to really listen to the whole
You
tape.
just have to sit there and listen to the whole tape as you're putting it onto the computer to digitize it.
Right. Mm-hmm. As far as VHS, I attended a community archiving workshop at Nashville Public Library, and we worked on VHS tapes. As far as the shelf life, it varies a whole lot with what the quality was in the original tape and how it's been stored. Certain ways that you can store tapes, you shouldn't store them the way they are in the picture there. They need to be as if they are books. They need to be on one edge and not on the heads, I guess you would say, of the videotape. In the original case,
And
right.
On cassette tapes, I have just, in the last few months, been going back through and my old music cassettes, recording them over to digitizing. And I found the music cassettes that were left sitting in mid-song without rewinding it completely. That stretch that's been exposed all that time is shot.
Yeah.
The rest of the tape may sound just fine, but when it gets to that stretch, where it was the last time I put it in a box, the sound is horrible just from being exposed
In that position for so long, right.
because I was too lazy to be kind and rewind like they say.
Well, and that makes a point, not just about cassette tapes or media, but about your archives in general. Don't put them away and never check on them again. Maybe make it a goal to, every couple of years, every other year, go, look at your stash of letters, look at your scrapbooks, and just make sure that they're still in good condition, that you didn't have a little silverfish visitor come and visit, or that nothing is, keeping it brittle. Just double check on those. Oops. And I know that there is quite a lot of interest in digitizing, but just like cassette tapes and VHS tapes, digital files will be obsolete one day. Just the reality. In the meantime, as you scan as a TIFF file because that degrades much less. As long as you have technology to read your file, you're good. But something will replace that eventually. But in the meantime, it is a good thing to do.
Does that mean all the images that have been put online for records are not going to last forever?
Well, I have been to a lot of websites that have disappeared, not found or error. So you are at the mercy of the host of that.
Oh,
Yeah. You know, really.
wow.
What's TIF?
Jack, I've drawn a blank. Some kind of increment file.
It takes a lot more space than others.
It does. It is huge. It's a huge, makes a huge file, but it is considered a preservation quality scan. And there are dots per inch specifications for the size of the document that you can find online. But as long, pardon me? Tag image file. Tag image file is what Lori has found. Thanks for looking that up. Keep a paper trail, especially I would say with your digital files. When you do scan something, make a note of what scanner you used, what setting you used, what computer you used with your scanner, because you're not saving that for you. You're saving that for your kids and grandkids to be able to convert that to read it. Just, again, do your paperwork, keep a paper trail, and you guys are the best at that. Not only the paper trail of what an image is or what an item is, but also the provenance. And that's where you all excel. You know your family, you know how to document things, but keep some documentation and keep a paper trail or a provenance about your items, because that needs to accompany the item to the next generations. This is something that I worked on for someone, and I think this was looted after World War II, perhaps. This object is a medallion. It's on silk fabric, and yes, that was gold, all of that. It weighed a ton. Somebody wanted to have a piano runner, like a table runner for a grand piano, made out of that they had purchased from France. The date of that acquisition, they told me, was 1958. Whenever I worked on it, I made notes for that person, the owner of it, because me not being a professional, I wanted them to be able to take it to a conservator, and the conservator not have to guess what I did. So if you work on something, whether it is your digital files, if you have photographs that you take somewhere and get some work done on it, try to keep some notes about that. Keep a paper trail, because it will help you in the future. And give copies, like especially your digital files, give those to relatives, share them with family. Well, does anybody have questions or any thoughts about certain types of heirlooms or archives?
Well, now, has anybody been to the Huntington Library?
Not lately.